Hey everybody, so here to talk to you about some of what I read in the Economist magazine. It's from this edition. It's about the Belt and Road Initiative. I got most of my information. There's a series of articles in here. You can see here it's, Belt and Road. But anyways, economists, they'll put out special reports where they have a series of articles on the topic in the middle of the magazine. I also got some more information from the South China Morning Post, a Chinese newspaper. But the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, it's the largest infrastructure project in the world history. And basically, China's putting its technicals into many countries around the world. They have a strategic thing they're doing. Honestly, I don't blame them for doing a lot of it. It's going to raise the efficiency rate of shipping and stuff. But then there's the other side, what they're doing. They're putting their grips in different areas, and which is going to enable them to put military power in those areas. But so according to these articles in the Economist, President Xi Jinping calls it the Eurasian Land Bridge, and the gateway is in a town called Korgos. So here's China, and then here's Kazakhstan, and I don't have a pointer here, but right here on the border of Kazakhstan and China, there's a town called Korgos. It's really a Chinese town, but they built up on the other Kazakhstan side as well. It's connected by a duty-free mall now, but that's where that's the gateway, and that's going to enable them to ship, and that's their gateway into this region of the world. So anyways, it's a dry port in Korgos, which means first of all, Korgos is near the area in the world which is known as the most remote place on Earth, the furthest place from any ocean. So Korgos is about as remote as you can get. It's it's a container terminal, and it's going to help with pipelines, roads, high-speed rail, all kinds of stuff. But the South China Morning Post, I got this information. These two cities, Korgos, Kazakhstan, and Korgos, China, which are virtually connected on the border, these two cities operate different gauge railroad lines. So on the China side, they operate the standard Western European gauge, which is 1,435 millimeters wide. That's the more narrow gauge. And the wider gauge is on the Kazakhstan side. It's known as the Russian railway gauge, and it's exactly 5 feet wide, or 1,524 millimeters. So it's about 90 millimeters wider than the standard gauge used in China. So, that's where they'll pull the trains up, they'll cross the border, and then they'll, it's like when you see a port like at Long Beach, where you have these big cranes that lift up the containers off the ships and then onto the trains. They have those in Korgos, China, and Korgos, Kazakhstan now. They'll lift up the cargo off the trains there and put them on trains in Kazakhstan, and then that can continue on that the more narrow or the wider gauge. The train from Yue, China. Yue is in the far east of China, and the train from there all the way to London is 18 days, and that increases shipping time big time, because before that the shipping time was 40 days. So again, I don't blame the Chinese for doing that. Why not make things more efficient? But there's always something sinister, though. But the Asian Development Bank says, estimates that Asia alone needs to invest $26 trillion between 2016 and 2030, or $1.7 trillion a year if it is to maintain economic growth, eradicate poverty, and respond to climate change. The Chinese Communist Party is using the Belt and Road Initiative to reshape a world order to its liking. The word belt refers to an interconnected network of infrastructure, including industrial zones and economic corridors with manufacturing, logistics, and construction, and more. So the word belt refers to everything going on the land, but the word road in Belt and Road, the word road refers to a 21st maritime Silk Road, a network of port cities in the South China Sea, Indian Ocean, and the Mediterranean would tie China closer by sea to these regions. Also, there is a planned Polar Silk Road to develop Arctic shipping routes, a digital Silk Road of undersea cables, and 5G telecom, and more. At least $400 billion is being spent in 160 countries through mostly loans. From a Communist Party perspective, cultivating political relationships and what the party likes to call people-to-people ties bends the world bit by bit to China's will. The project's priority are strategic, partly to secure critical supplies of natural resources to drive economic growth at home, and then Shanghai is now gets half of its natural gas from Turkmenistan, which helps it avoid shipping gas through the Malacca Strait. So again, here's China, and this is probably too far away, but here's China. Turkmenistan's right here. So they've got a pipeline shipping gas there. Otherwise, they would have to get gas shipped by an actual ship around this way. And then the Malacca Strait is one of the, maybe the most busy shipping lane in the world. It's between Indonesia and Malaysia, and it passes by Singapore. But so they would have to ship from there all the way around and then here, but now they can just ship it through a gas line that way. Part of the reason they want to do that is because the United States is kind of still in control in the area of the Malacca Strait. So if there's a war or anything, China doesn't want to get choked off, which honestly I can understand. I mean, I think the U.S. would do the same thing in that situation, because currently 80% of China's energy supplies, energy imports, come through the Malacca Strait. So then the strategic benefits also will come from developing ports and dominance in the global shipping industry. These could be the foundation for China to exercise naval power far from their shores. This could be a big problem for Japan, Southeast Asia, India, and other countries that depend on the world's busiest sea lanes. Because like I say, when little by little they're taking control of ports and they're building new ports, and it's not just for commerce, but it's also for military power to take strategic control of the area. And as they gain more power, other countries, like they say, like Japan, they don't want to get squeezed out. A gentleman by the name of Bruno Macias, the former Portuguese foreign minister, says the dawn of Eurasia, the dawn of Eurasia is the spillover effects from infrastructure, trade, and finance into politics, culture, and security are not a bug in the project, but it's the most fundamental feature. So he says all these side effects are intentional. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, also known as CPEC, promises to fix Pakistan's routine electricity blackouts, promises $60 billion in investment, power plants, roads, railways, and the port of Gwadar. Americans say that CPEC, again that's the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, Americans say it is driven above all by China's long-term strategic objective to link its western regions to the Arabian Sea. So here's the Arabian Sea, here's Pakistan, and Pakistan connects the Arabian Sea to China. The China, okay, so this will give it new energy routes and also allow it to project power into the western Indian Ocean. The Americans say this will leave Pakistan in debt and under China's sway. Chinese land grabs for forestry in Cambodia threaten, changing topics, this is Cambodia, but China's land grabs for forestry in Cambodia threaten biodiversity. The city of Sihanoukville had gambling legalized for foreigners. There were 80,000 Chinese construction workers, investors, casino operators, and tourists, and it just overwhelmed the cities, and the drains are overrun, monsoons flood sewage everywhere, so they're having problems there. And I read another article about Ecuador. Ecuador is kind of in debt, and they're now they're selling out some of their rainforest land to Chinese state-owned oil companies, which is not good. To date, the majority of China's investments are in commercial ports. State-owned companies are leading the charge. China Communications Construction Company, that's one company. Costco, again that's spelled C-O-S-C-O, it's the state-owned Chinese shipping company. It's the third largest container shipping line, and it has investments in 61 port terminals around the world. Another company called China Merchants manages 36 ports in 18 countries. More than $20 billion of Chinese money has been invested into foreign ports. In Djibouti, Djibouti is a little, you won't even be able to see this for sure, but okay, so here's Northeast Africa. Djibouti is a little tiny country. It's just a dot from where you're at, but here's the Gulf of Aden, here's the Red Sea. The Red Sea leads to the Suez Canal, which leads to the Mediterranean Sea, so it's a major shipping route. But Djibouti is right at the entryway to all of that. China just opens its first foreign naval base there in 2017, and then they also, Djibouti nationalized the main port there, and that port was being run by Dubai's port operator, so Djibouti tore up that contract, and so now, and then they handed the control of that port to China. So now China controls all the supplies that are coming into to Djibouti there, and France, Japan, and the United States also have naval bases there. So the supplies that come into the United States, Japan, and France's naval bases there are being controlled by China. So that's obviously making the US and those other countries a little nervous, because China is really ratcheting up their control there. So the China merchants, okay, so this means, well, let me just move on to a new topic. So President Xi says China must become a cyber superpower. Chinese companies like Huawei help countries spy on communications. Zimbabwe, without its citizens' consent, supplies data to China's facial recognition programs. And President Xi calls the Piraeus port in Greece the dragon head of Chinese investment in Europe. Greece is the first Western European country to join the 17 plus 1 group, which is a group of Central and Eastern European countries working with Beijing. I'm not sure it says that they're the first, but Italy, I remember reading in the past, Italy's starting to wheel and deal with China as well. But so the Piraeus port near Athens, Greece, is what President Xi calls the dragon head of Chinese investment in Europe. So it'll be interesting to see how things go there over the next coming years. But anyways, I know this was a rough presentation, but that's just some information I've got from a couple sources here on the Belt and Road Initiative in China. Some of it can make other countries nervous, like they're taking control of some shipping lanes, and that's not good. Not saying that our country isn't up to something here and there. I mean, we've got anchors in all over the world, but China, they're that communist regime runs everything. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I honestly can't blame them for doing some stuff because, hey, it makes shipping more efficient. I mean, if they cut a shipping lane, instead of shipping something by boat for 40 days and they can do it by train for 18 days, that makes sense. But we'll see how things go for the next many years and decades. So anyways, I know that was a boring presentation, but have a good day.